Hey everyone, I wanted to go over the new and exciting news that we got for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak coming onto the Nintendo Switch and on PC in summer of 2022. In this video, I just want to focus specifically as to what Capcom has actually told us directly as to what's going to be coming into Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Because as of right now, we do know that Capcom will be hosting their online program Monster Hunter Spotlight presentation on September 30th at 6 a.m. Pacific Time and 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And I could sit here and speculate as to what they could actually go ahead and showcase, but I'm not going to do that. In fact, I actually went ahead and did a little bit of research and pretty much gathered all the information that Capcom has told us regarding the game. Obviously, all of this information is available directly from their websites. I don't want to get in trouble with Capcom any longer like I've talked about in the past. And of course, I'm going to leave all the information in the video description below so you guys can go ahead and read it up for yourselves if you so desire. So then the question becomes, what do we actually know about Sunbreak as of right now? What has Capcom actually shared and provided us with that we can actually expect? So this is the thing. The official website for the game just pretty much has the trailer and like pretty much nothing else. They're just talking about Tokyo Game Show, come check us out. We're going to have more information. They don't necessarily have anything there. This is the English one. The Japanese one, same thing. They don't necessarily have anything. In the Japanese official Nintendo page for the pretty much the recap for the Nintendo Direct, they posted a little bit of details and stuff, but not necessarily anything relevant. Interestingly enough though, however, the Capcom Unity page in North America seems to have a brand new blog update, and in it they actually provided us pretty much with a little bit of more detail as to what this game is actually going to be about and what we can expect. So I'm just going to read a little bit of what it actually says. Starting earlier this year, you've taken up arms as a hunter of Camera Village, fended off ongoing rampages, and finally put the mysteries of the Thunder and Wind Serpents to rest. Well done, hunters. However, the work of a hunter never truly ends. A new ominous chapter is about to unfold in the Monster Hunter Rise saga. Enter Monstrous expansion Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, coming to Nintendo Switch and PC in summer of 2022. They showcase the trailer, and then it says, what do you actually think? The eerie music of the new locale comes together with the set of a stage that's menacing monster reveal. It gave me the chills. As a direct expansion to Monster Hunter Rise, you can expect a massive amount of content coming to Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, including, and this is where it gets interesting, an all-new storyline with new monsters, new locales, gameplay elements, new quest ranks, and much more. We're keeping some of the finer details concealed in the darkness until a later date. In the meantime, we have more fun game content coming up for Monster Hunter Rise, including one more Capcom collaboration. So stay tuned for the Monster Hunter social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, yada yada, for the latest news and updates of all things Monster Hunter. So obviously the biggest takeaway there is the fact that they mentioned that there's an all new storyline, which of course, that's kind of expected. You would expect them to continue the storyline with Monster Hunter Rise, showcasing just a little bit of what actually surrounds Camera Village. That in fact has actually been one of the biggest contributors and like conversation starters when I actually see people speaking about lore when it comes to Monster Hunter Rise. In fact, one of the ongoing posts that I don't necessarily think I've actually done a very good recap of, or in fact just ever talked about before, is one of those Twitter posts that they love to make where they have like a cat ninja basically talking about lore or like little tidbits of information regarding the lore of the game. And in one of the most recent ones, they spoke about one of the characters being from Yukumo Village, which you know of, like Yukumo Village is from one of the older Monster Hunter games. So we know location-wise, Camera Village is actually located near Yukumo Village. If anything, it's actually pretty much like a neighboring village, but they've never actually showcased it in the game. So it's one of those things that I do find interesting that all of a sudden, lore-wise, they're actually starting to speak about places that surround Camera Village. And my guess is because most likely in Sunbreak, I don't necessarily say that we're going to be able to go to Yukumo Village, but it's going to be one of those things that is most likely going to be referenced to directly by actually naming it and saying like characters from here have actually come from there or vice versa. So it's going to be one of those things that we're most likely going to be able to get more information on. Obviously, that's storyline related. Then when they talk about new monsters, well, I don't necessarily want to get into leak or spoiler territory or anything along those lines. I don't want Capcom to come after me anymore, so I'll leave that to be for just what it is right now. Did they showcase that Drake? Obviously, they're going to be showcasing the new flagship monster. That is what that guy is, that new dragon that they showcase, but we don't necessarily know much about him or even his name. hopefully the Tokyo Game Show presentation will be just that, then providing us more information of what that new flagship monster will actually be. We do know that he does seem like wind attack. That's how he took down the Rathalos, so at the very least, we know that much. When they talk about new locales, obviously they're talking about the things that I was just referencing before. Would they show Yukumo Village? Would they show off some of those new areas? Obviously that new castle and that eerie locale that they showcase there, obviously is going to be one of those things that we should be able to expect. And then when they mention gameplay new elements, essentially just new things being brought into the game, well, you have to wonder. New gameplay elements were pretty much the Palamute, right? One of the things that completely changed the way you actually play the game. What's another brand new gameplay element? The wire bug attack. Pretty much having a wire bug in general just completely changed the way you mechanically not just move from one area to another, but pretty much just actually deal with combat. How do you actually just go about your moment-to-moment gameplay and how you even chain up your attacks? So it's one of those things that I do think at the end of the day, when they talk about new gameplay elements and new gameplay ideas, it's going to end up being something bigger than the Clutch Claw, which we ended up seeing in Iceborne. I think Iceborne, out of everything that it got, the Clutch Claw was probably the biggest thing, the biggest addition Iceborne brought with it. Obviously, there were like different new monsters and different new subspecies, which is something that I would expect them to rely on heavily to pad out pretty much the roster altogether. Now, when they talk about new monsters, I do think they're talking about specifically just the new ones that they're going to add. Again, I'm not going to get into that. But I do think that when it was speaking about like padding out the roster, I do think that you should be thinking subspecies and plenty of them. Remember that Deviants pretty much became Apex monsters, and Apex are pretty much an easy way for them to be able to just add and round out even more of those monsters. So any monster that doesn't necessarily have an Apex version right now, think of it that way. There's also going to be adding plenty of those. Again, that's just me speculating. I don't necessarily have any sort of information regarding any of that. It just makes the most amount of sense. Now, the last thing that they talk about is a new quest rank. And of course, we all know what that actually means. G rank. That's pretty much everything what everyone's been waiting for. That's the big thing. That's the big ticket here that pretty much just gives us that new brand new difficulty. It's interesting that they don't call it a difficulty. They just say a quest rank, but we all kind of like within the context of like how the game is actually broken down, low rank and high rank, it's pretty much broken down into quest ranks. That's how it actually works. So when they say new quest rank, they're just pretty much saying G rank without actually saying G rank. So it's one of those things where like we know what they actually mean. So with all that said, you know, G rank expansion, great. New gameplay elements, depending on what that actually be, but you know, I don't think they're necessarily going to change much of the wire bug idea. I think that was a pretty big hit for them. I don't think they're going to mess with too much of that. The Palamutes were definitely a hit. People love them, so they're not going to, you know, worry too much about that. New locales, it really much depends on how many of those are there actually going to be. You know, if they actually add 3 to 4 to 5 brand new areas, I think that's going to be really interesting. But you know, can they actually get that much content out there? I don't necessarily know. When it comes to new monster, that thing is just pretty much boiled down to how many subspecies can they add and how many apexes can they add. So it really much boils down to that for me personally. And then, you know, how many more Monster Hunter World monsters can they actually bring over that they didn't want to bring over? And then whatever new ones they're going to showcase. I think the number 10 pretty much rounds it out to something that would be appealing to me, something that I would think it sounds good, but I don't necessarily know. And then when it comes to the new storyline, again, it's all boiled down to how actually appealing the story is actually to you. And it's one of those things that I do think at the end of the day, people are going to be, you know, pretty hit or miss on about. But usually that's the deal with Monster Hunter. You come for the gameplay, not necessarily for the story. So other than that, that's pretty much all the information that they've provided us with regarding Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak as of this point in time on September 24th. We don't necessarily know what they're going to showcase at Tokyo Game Show, although we do know that they're going to showcase it there as well. But as to what extent, we don't necessarily know that as of right now. With all that said, hopefully you guys are excited. I know I am. It took me a little bit by surprise that I didn't necessarily expect them to showcase this very early on. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I didn't necessarily think, I thought it was too early for them to showcase G-Rank expansion. But at the end of the day, you know, it is their timing, it is their call. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully you guys found it informational and you are excited for the expansion. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.